become will be determined by the love and nurturing they receive in their first years of life. That's the message to new parents and parents-to-be in the book, The Baby and the Seed, a primer on good parenting. It was written by Dr. Leland Bud Beamer, who joins us now. Doctor, welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Maggie.
I know that your book is based on research that shows that people who had dysfunction in their first years of life were more likely to have a number of problems as adults. Can you tell us about some of those problems?
Well, we know that toxic stress causes the increase in stress chemicals, cortisol, norepinephrine, which causes damage to the nervous system and pruning of the important pathways for self-regulation and empathy particularly. And that we find that there's a 2 to 3-fold increase in chronic diseases, a 6 to 12-fold increase in addiction disorders and mental disorders and behavioral disorders, and a 32-fold increase in learning disabilities, according to Nadine Burke-Harris, Surgeon General of California. But those disorders have their genesis in the first 2 years of life and the 9 months of pregnancy from toxic stress. And you talk about savings on health costs and where we're going. We need to direct our attention to these first 2 years.
You say toxic stress. Specifically, what are these children going through as infants and toddlers in the home that's leading to this later?
Well, it's a form of abuse, of sexual, emotional, abuse and neglect, dysfunction within the family, the multiple foster homes, the dysfunction in the marriage, addiction, psychological disorders, even maternal depression, domestic abuse, and all this creates toxic stress. Instead of the love and the nurturing that fosters growth, they be on red alert and stressed, and their self-regulation, stress response system gets totally dysfunctional. What
specific activities do you believe that parents should be taking part in with their toddlers and infants to prevent this?
Well, the main approach is eye contact. Parents need to relate to their kids emotionally, look into their eyes, relate to them, have this serve and return relationship with the emotions of the child. This stimulates the growth in the system for empathy and the executive center, which has to do with regulation and their learning system. And even if they're impoverished, we find that people that are poor have one strike against them, but if they relate to their kids emotionally and raise them with caring and love, that they end up as good as people that have better incomes. So they need to remember this contact as they're raising their children.
And how much time, because there are a lot of working moms out there who feel like, I would love to give my baby more time, but I have to go to work. How much time are we talking about? Is it quality versus quantity?
It's quality. They find that a parent's absence has less impact on the child than a mother who's with them all the time that can't emotionally connect with them. So it's the quality of the time they spend together, the time they look into their eyes, the time that they share doing activities together is what the quality is the issue.
And why is it so vitally important that this happen while the brain's developing in those first crucial years of life?
Well, 95% of the brain develops in the first 9 months of pregnancy and the first 2 years of life. And there's a graph that Dr. Bruce Perry created that shows the brain developing 95% in the first 3 years, and as you get out to 20 years, it's almost down to baseline as the ability to change the brain, and yet the amount of money spent to change the brain
later
is way up here at a time that the brain is difficult to change, and that's why we have recidivism, and we need to move the money back to the front and agencies that care for kids and provide good quality daycare and support mothers who are raising kids.
Yes. And lastly, I have to commend you because I love the title, The Baby and the Seed. It came from a poem, right? You were inspired by a poem?
Yeah, it's a metaphor. You know, it has to do with nurturing and love in the first years of life, or when you plant a seed, and the quality of the outcome is based on this nurturing years. And we went through a phase in the 20th century where the germ theory determined medical issues. In the 21st century, we're going to determine what toxic stress does and how to address it and how to educate people. And I want this to be in the hands of the mothers, for the home health nurse to come in and give it to them, to give it to kids that are going to become parents, so that we have a better future.
Well, I hope that happens, and we'll do our best to help you spread the message. Thank you for your time today,
Well,
Doctor.
thanks for having me. It's been great.
Our pleasure. And the book, once again, is called The Baby and the Seed. Look for it anywhere books are sold.